Martin Luther King was born on January 15th, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. Martin had an older sister, Willie Christine, and a younger brother, Alfred Daniel Williams King. The King children grew up in a secure and loving environment. Martin Sr. was the more disciplinarian, while his wife's gentleness easily balanced out the father's more strict hand. Though they undoubtedly tried, Martin Jr.'s parents couldn't shield him completely from racism. Martin's grandfather began the family's long occupation as pastors of the church in Atlanta, serving from 1914 to 1931. His father has served from then until present, and from 1960 until his death, Martin Luther acted as co-pastor. Martin attended segregated public schools in Georgia. Graduating from high school at age 15, he then received a BA degree in 1948 from Morehouse College, a distinguished Negro institution of Atlanta from which both his father and grandfather graduated. He then dedicated 3 years to theological studies at Crozier Seminary in Pennsylvania. While earning his graduate degree in Boston University, he met Coretta Scott, who he would marry and have 4 children with. King and Coretta settled in Montgomery, Alabama. That's when Martin became the 20th pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. When Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat to a white man on a Montgomery City bus in 1985, the incident lit a fire under the civil rights movement. King's boycott was very successful because he worked with other people to get the individuals of Montgomery, Alabama to understand that they weren't going to take it anymore. King's way of talking to people and his experience gave him the credentials to become a leader in the 208 boycott of the city buses. On December 20th, 1956, the Supreme Court ruled segregated buses to be unconstitutional. This was a major win for the civil rights cause and proved that King's nonviolent method to protest works. King was now the national face of the civil rights cause. But with those came some consequences. He was jailed over 25 times and was once stabbed in the chest. His house was bombed and he suffered relentless attacks on himself and his family. For a man with peaceful intentions, he unfortunately spent half of his life of being the target of violence, but yet the threats never stopped him. He most definitely inspired lots of people, from his mentality to not give up and his fearlessness. King worked so much on the cause he strongly believed in, and from 1957 to 1968, he traveled over 6 million miles, delivered 2,500 speeches, wrote 5 books, and dozens of articles. His hard work and ability to reach out to people earned him such respect that he earned the ear of John F. Kennedy. Out of all his famous speeches, none of them have stood up like the I Have a Dream speech. This speech was delivered at the Lincoln Memorial in 1963 in front of 250,000 people, both black and white. King became such a big icon in America that he was named the Time magazine's Man of the Year in 1963. But that was not as good as in 1964, he became the youngest ever to win the Nobel Peace Prize. In Memphis, he led a protest march defending the rights of striking garbage workers in April of 1968. He delivered a great speech called "I've Been to the Mountaintop." Unfortunately, this was his last speech. While standing on the balcony of his second-floor room at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, King was shot and killed. In 1983, Ronald Reagan signed a proclamation declaring the third Monday of every January it was to be Martin Luther King Jr. Day. This holiday is to celebrate the hero himself and what he stood for. James Earl Ray was eventually apprehended after a 2-month international manhunt. This killing sparked riots and demonstrations in more than 100 cities across the country. In 1969, Ray pleaded guilty to assassinating King and was sentenced to 99 years in prison. He died in prison on April 23, 1998. Martin Luther King Jr.'s life had a seismic impact on race relations in the United States. Years after his death, he was the most widely known African American leader of his era. His life and work have been honored with a national holiday, schools and public buildings named after him, and a memorial on Independence Mall in Washington, D.C. Without Martin Luther King, all the African Americans now wouldn't be here. Martin blew away the racial barricades. African Americans would have never went to school with or be seen with white people. I think Martin didn't just set racial barricades away for African Americans, but also Latinos, Asians, and all the other races. Think about it. Without him, everybody would be treated different. It is damn near impossible for a person to go through what Martin Luther went through, but Martin still did it. This guy is a warrior. All the sport greats are African Americans. For example, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Tiger Woods. If it wasn't for Martin, there would still be a white baseball or colored basketball. Luther once said, "I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Only whites allowed, no African Americans." Without King, these signs would be all over the place. Someone else brave with these powers of speech would have noticed these sooner or later. They could have easily stood up and said, that's dangerous, I could get killed. But what if they were truly brave? They would stand up and state that skin color doesn't matter, but character does. Then King wouldn't be there, but someone else would. Now, what if it was a role simply was not made to happen? I don't think about it, all my African American friends. I would never have met. If I was African American, I would never have met all my white friends. Yes, our lives would have been better with King.